Welcome to Woolen Spinning. It is so good to be here with you all. It is Tuesday, June 2nd. I don't know how it's June. Like, how did we get here, you guys? If somebody could tell me, I would really appreciate it. I hope you're all doing really super well. I'm going to just start the show by just mentioning that I actually have quite a bad headache. I came down with it yesterday. I think it was for a myriad of reasons. At this time of year, I do tend to get quite bad headaches, and they last for several days and then they start to dissipate and let go. So if I seem a little bit lower energy, or if I just seem like I'm fading a little bit, that is why. And there's really nothing I can do. They just take a few days and then they start to let go. And they touch wood, they don't seem to get to migraine level, but I do get an aura before I get them, and then I sort of have this like low grade tension headache for several days. So I know it has to do with what's going on outside with our weather. It is extremely hot today, like for us for this time of year. It's unseasonably warm. And like I feel like I'm podcasting in like the middle of July wearing a tank top and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But it's just the time of year, and it seems to be really, really warm. So welcome everybody. My name is Rachel. I live just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia here in Canada. I want to welcome you to this place. We spend a lot of time talking about yarn here and making yarn and hand spinning. That is the primary thing that we do. Thank you, Dion. Before we jump into the show and sort of get going, I generally just send you guys down to the Ketchup and Pickles monthly post that has all of the links, all the teaching content, everything that's available throughout the month here for you guys. But there are a couple of things that I need to mention really quickly. Number one, it is June 2nd today. How is it June? And June 16th this year, so 2 weeks from today, is our 10-year Patreon anniversary. So it's our anniversary of being on Patreon for 10 years. I hit publish on June 16th of 2016, which is mind-boggling to me. Nora was 2, James was 4. I had already been podcasting for just over 2 years by then, but June 16th was kind of the magical day that the Patreon campaign started. So big milestone. Last year on June 16th, we did kind of like a run up. It was Eveline's idea. I loved it. And Eveline, I hope you're recovering from your marathon. We did kind of like a run-up practice, and it was a lot of fun. We started the Zoom first thing in the morning, and it went way into the evening and into the night. This year, we're just going to keep it running. Like, let's see how long you guys can keep it going for. So we will start it in the morning. The information is down below in Ketchup and Pickles. But please, for patrons of the community, mark June 16th on your calendar. We do have the live stream that day. I don't know if some of you realized that it's 2 weeks from today, so there is a live stream. I'm not totally sure what we're going to do about that yet. I think what we're going to do is keep the Zoom going, and we will have the stream at the same time. So we might have like a little peanut gallery or something. I'm not sure how we're going to do that. So just let me get settled back into our house. As you can see, it's kind of timely actually. If we could just wax poetic for just a moment. It's kind of neat because we have been here for almost 8 months at my mom's place. So as you can see, the background is still the same. And we are moving back into our home next week. And so the first stream celebrating the 10-year anniversary will be back in my new space. So I thought that was kind of cool. I thought it was kind of kismet. Eve says, oh, that's wonderful. June 16th is a very happy day, is a very special day for her bestie too. Yes, from a difficult situation. That's wonderful. Liberation is always something to celebrate. So that is the June 16th birthday party. Patrons of the community, please mark that in your calendar. There will be a post the day before with the Zoom link for you to jump in anytime throughout the day. Even if you only have 15 minutes, come and say hello. So that is going on in 2 weeks today, so mark your calendars. The other thing that is huge, and I am so excited to announce, and I didn't want this to get lost in the Ketchup and Pickles and the housekeeping post, because it does tend to be quite long, and I know sometimes we don't scroll all the way to the end, but Dion is going to be back hosting the Color Maniacs group. So that will start this month. If you would like to join that dedicated Zoom group with that dedicated group, go to Patreon and look for the Staplers Color Zoom group tier. And you have to scroll across to find it. The first three that show up are the spinning circle, the wool circle, the silk circle, and then you have to scroll across for the dedicated Zoom group. So Dion will be back. That means that you have access to Dion in the dedicated Color Maniacs group, and then also Spinning Staplers. And if the times don't always work for you, all of the meetings are recorded. They are available after the fact, and the ongoing conversation in the dedicated Slack groups continues throughout the days, weeks, and months. So yeah, wonderful. Oh, that's very cool, Eliane. She says June 16th is her grandmother's birthday. She was born in 1918. That's wonderful. Eve, do I need hosts for Zoom? Yes, I will need some help running the Zoom. I'm just going to run it in the background, and then I'll come in and out throughout the day as I can. But yes, it would be great if people were around who could commit to little time blocks like we did last year. That would be really helpful. So Color Maniacs. The other thing that Dion wanted me to mention was, well, she didn't ask me, but I wanted to mention, the group will, instead of just being an hour, it's going to be an hour and a half. And that gives her enough time to be able to do some demos and to be able to really get into the nitty gritty of some of the color stuff that she wants to explore with the group. So it'll sort of be a little bit more of an instructor led type group for the first part of the meeting, with lots and lots of time for Q&A and lots of time for discussion, and for you guys to bring your stuff to say, I don't know what to do. So that's really exciting. And I'm just glad that Dion is feeling better, and that that was what she wanted to come back to. I was just over the moon. And then the last thing was, yesterday I got to hang out with my dear friend Debbie Held. She is here from Georgia visiting. She was filming last week in the Sweet Georgia studios, and decided to, and then did a bunch of workshops over the weekend. She was absolutely exhausted, so I felt so just heartwarmed, for lack of a better term, that she wanted to spend the day. So we hung out yesterday. I took her out for lunch. We went to one of my favorite coffee shops, and then one of my favorite restaurants, and we just had an absolute blast together. And hopefully I'll get a chance to see her one more time before she heads home, but if not, it was just such a pleasure. She's one of my dear friends, and it was so much fun. I want to show you guys the photo. So Nora took a couple of photos before we said goodbye at the end of the day, because we were talking so much throughout the day, we didn't do any photos. So I always forget to pull out my phone and do photos, and I think that's probably a good thing, because I'm in the moment, but then I don't have photos to show afterwards. So it was a wonderful day, and it was so good to see her. I think that is it for all of the things. For people who are new here, and for people that are just dipping their toes into the community and getting started with everything, there is a Start Here guide just down below, and links are posted right below. Click on that, go through to the Patreon post. It will walk you through all of the things that you need to know to get started. And then reach out to me if you have any further questions, or after you've joined, if you've still got some questions, please reach out to me, Dion, or Rebecca. We're all happy to answer questions for you. I think that's it. I think that's kind of it for our intro. I'm just going to check chat. You guys are already off to the races. It's so good to see everybody. Rebecca is here, Dagmar and Nicole and Christine, Dion, Eliane, Lily. Who else? I'm going to miss a bunch of people. Deidre is here. Alberto, good to see you guys. So wonderful. Oh, that's so interesting, Christine. She said there's a post from Ply Magazine about the whole Rolag versus Puni thing. Oh, I wonder if somebody could post that in the Slack channel so that I could go and have a look. That would be great. Yeah, there's so much language out there. And actually, Debbie and I got into a conversation about that yesterday. You know, you use certain words in your writing, because her and I, of course, do a ton of writing. And you use certain words, and then sometimes the editors or further down the road, some of the tech editors, it depends on who's looking at your work as it goes through all the process, through the process of publishing. They'll sometimes, you know, change a phrase, or they'll change a word, or they'll ask for your feedback about something. And we were talking about how some of those simple changes can change what you're saying, because these terms and these words have changed over time, and they mean different things. And we were talking about how language changes, and how in our space, in this hand spinning community, words have changed, language has changed, what we use to describe certain things has changed. In some ways, I think from my perspective, and I might be, some might not agree, and I would love to hear from you. I think in some ways the language has loosened a little bit. I think it's more relaxed than it was. In some ways, I think some of the words that we used to describe certain things, they used to mean a very specific thing. And now we can use that same word to describe a few different things, which can sometimes be misleading, and newer members of, or beginners, sometimes get lost. And then those of us who are sort of more on the master end, or expert end, or sort of, you know, advanced intermediate, even an intermediate sort of end of the learning spectrum, can get a little bit lost in the weeds sometimes of what these words mean, and ascribing meaning to some of them. So yeah, it was a really interesting conversation her and I had. Oh, wonderful, Eve. She said if her tribunal goes well, she's planning to join Color Mania. That's wonderful. I'm so glad. Eve is a big color person, so that would be a good fit. All right, let's jump into the show, because what always inevitably happens is we sit here and chit chat for a long time, and I've got lots to share with you today. All right, Rebecca makes such a good point. It is in the nature of language to evolve. It is correct if we understand each other. That is so true. We should have that as like a tagline. It's absolutely true. Okay, let's see. What do we have going on? We have a lot going on. Let's talk about Skeined yarn to start with, because I did actually finish some things. I don't know how, but I actually finished some stuff over the course of this week, and I wanted to share it with you. So why don't we start with that? And then I do have a couple of spins in progress. One is almost finished. I'm very excited. And then I wanted to spend a chunk of the show sharing with you some of my knitted progress on some of my projects that I've been working on. I've kind of put a couple aside just as we transition back into the home, because the Fidalgo cardigan that I told you about, I think last show, in my fit of startitis, I want to wash and block that, the top part of the neck and shoulder shaping before I go any further. And so because we've had all of this really beautiful hot warm weather, I thought that I would do it while we were here. But then I realized that my blocking mats are in the sea can, and I can't get them out until we actually move in. The moving company comes on Monday. So I thought what I would do is just put that aside for a few minutes, because it has been so warm. Having that big, heavy, sort of bulky, not bulky wool, but a bigger sweater project like that just does not appeal right now. So I thought I'll put that aside for a few moments while we get settled back in the house, and I'll work on some of these lighter weight projects in the meantime. And that's where the inspiration for the topic for today's show came from, was actually these sort of t-shirt-y, tanky type projects that I've been working on the last week or so. So we'll spend a good chunk of time talking about that, and hopefully we'll have time for community participation. Okay, so I did finish a couple of things. Let's flip over. Before I flip over the camera, I have a couple of photos, but I did finish my burn pile bat. This was supposed to be saved for Tour de Fleece, and I was just too excited about it, so I spun it up. And then the other project that I managed to finish was my singles. So all of my 3 skeins of Scruff is finished, and I am so pleased with how this came out. I'm so pleased with the colors. I just love how the singles came out. I'm really pleased with the finishing method that I used because everything is really smooth and feels really nice. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. So this burn pile bat was from my friend Melissa from a couple of years ago now. I showed you these photos last show, I think, but it was, quote, Big Mama. It was a local mystery rescue fleece that was destined for the burn pile. And then added 15% Surrey alpaca, and then another to the bat that I had, which was 100 grams. She added another 20 grams of Cashgora, which resulted in an incredibly soft, really lofty, airy yarn. And it has enough bulk to it that it just pops right back up. So when you sort of crunch it down, it comes right back up. But the overall bat itself came out this sort of silvery white gray. The wool was white, and then the Surrey alpaca and the Cashgora must have been a little tiny bit gray because it's got this lovely heathering to it. These photos, this one is probably the most accurate to the color. It's sort of this silvery white, silvery gray. This one's a little bit warm. It sort of looks a little bit, it has a yellow undertone to it, and that is not what the yarn looks like in real life. But I'm having a ton of problems with my camera. And once we're settled in the house, there's a lot of things that once we're settled in the house, we're gonna have a brainstorming session, me and Mike, about what we're gonna do with my camera, because my DSLR is, I think it's on its last legs. Granted, I've taken thousands and thousands and thousands of photos with that camera. It doesn't owe me anything. It's over 10 years old, but unfortunately, I'm having a lot of difficulty with it. There's big software issues. So what I did with this bat was it came in 2 sheets, and the one sheet became bobbin number 1 and the other sheet became bobbin number 2. And there's photos here that you guys can see where I just stripped it down. I talked about this last show. I stripped it down and made all these little nests of fiber. And I think what ended up happening was it felt like a snack spin. It felt really super fast to do. It's only 120 grams, very light and airy, continuous backward, not really smoothing as I went, just keeping it really, really light, very light fingers. And because the little nest spun so quickly, this was done in 2 days. It was bobbin 1 for one day and bobbin number 2 the second day, and then I plied. I did do this on my Daedalus Dove, and I did have some issues with the plying for whatever reason, and I think it's because I had to crank it up and crank the speed quite a bit to get enough twist into the yarn. Otherwise I would have been like plying for days because it would have been too slow. I did have some issues with backspin, even though I slowed it down before I stopped it every single time to move the sliding guide. But there was a lot of backspin, and I think there are some areas in the skein that are a little bit underspun and a little bit overspun. So I've got like a little bit of both. So once we're back in the house, there's a theme here today. I should change the title of the podcast today to Once We're Back in the House. I am going to skein it into a center pull ball, and I'm going to do what Becca often does for her spinner's certificate of excellence. She's doing her portfolio right now, and Becca's been going through each skein and kind of fixing them if she needs to with her supported spindle, with one of her plying spindles. And it means that you can add twist in places and take twist out in places, and then your overall skein just feels and looks more even. And when you're doing a master certificate and you're only spinning a couple of ounces for your samples, that's really important to make sure that you have an overall cohesive, really even skein. And sometimes there's only a couple of places in 1 or 2 ounces that needs to be fixed. But for this, I think because I was having a little bit issues with the dove and it was backspinning a little bit, and there's a couple of things that I would do differently next time when I go to ply. My brake band tension needed to be a little bit firmer. So I tightened that up halfway through and sort of figured out some of those little niggly, nuancy type things that you just start to figure out on a new wheel. I hadn't plied on the dove yet, so this was a great opportunity to ply an entire skein and have a really good feel from start to end of how it changes, how it feels. Scotch tension, you often need a little bit more brake tension as the bobbin fills up because the bobbin gets heavier. All those little things. I will say I really like the Kevlar brake band. It's very responsive. So if I turn the brake tension, for example, up by half a turn or a full turn, often that will be enough, like it'll do what I want it to do in terms of just give me that fine tuning of the brake tension. I really like that Kevlar. I'm tempted to try it on my Majacraft just to see, a little bit of a experiment, I guess you could say. Rebecca was wondering if I spun it a bit woolen. I definitely did, because I didn't do any smoothing. I just did continuous back, and I just kind of pinched, pulled back, and then I didn't let go to this extent where this is exaggerated to show you guys. But then I would move my hand back to the fiber supply, pinch, pull back, let go, pinch, pull back, let go. So it ended up incredibly airy, really, really lofty, and exactly what we would expect from a woolen yarn. A little bit airy, or very airy, and a little bit in places, a little bit thick and thin in places. But again, I think it was me, still fiddling around with the dove and getting a feel for it. But I'm really, really, really happy with how this turned out, and I'm really excited to find a pattern to knit with this, because I think next to the skin it would just be perfect. I'm thinking something like a little scarf, something that I can wear to like show off this little skein of yarn, that would just really sing, and it would be warm. So really happy with how that came out. Now the other spin that I finished is the one that I mentioned at the beginning, is my 3 big skeins of Scruff. And actually I need to pull up, so I spun these on my Daedalus as well, again, playing around with different break settings, playing around with sort of, different drafting. This was singles, so I know that I'm not going to ply it. Making sure that I'm staying really super even as I'm drafting. With singles like this, I wanted them to be gently thick and thin. I made sure that I didn't micromanage them too much. I wanted them to be a little bit textured, because my plan was to weave with these, or is to weave with these. Overall, very, very happy with how these came out. And I didn't write down the yardage on these, because the problem with the singles, this was Cormo. Let me put up the photo so you can see. This was the original fiber. So pretty. It's meant to be all the different colors of men's beards. So it's called Scruff. And like I said, it's on Cormo. And then the singles, here are some photos of the singles. So the big thing in the photos, it makes it look like the lighter colors are really super dominant. And so I was looking at this photo and I was sort of thinking to myself, like, oh, there isn't as much dark as I thought that there was in the skeins. And then I took a photo of them and in grayscale, in black and white, and they really are lighter than I had sort of originally thought that they were. But I think my plan with this is to be honest, I think something like basket weave, over 2, under 2, in both the warp and the weft, sort of a twill adjacent type structure. As big a piece of fabric as I possibly can. And thank you, Eliane. She says, very pretty yarn. Thank you so much. And what I'm thinking is did I do a little sample that I showed you guys? I did, didn't I? Or did I not ever actually do it? I did one of the other bramble ridge that I'm going to weave with. Once again, this will be a project that I start when we move back into our house, because I've got a couple of things I have to do for Weft magazine. So once that's done, then I can do these other 2 weaving projects that have kind of been on the back burner a little bit. I was going to throw this on the loom right away, and then I actually decided to hold back because I have to do the Weft article first. And so as soon as we move the loom back into the house, that will be the next project that will go onto the loom. Once that project is done, it's an overshot sampler. Once that is done, then these 2, this and my other one, the what was it, the Sphinx moth, the greens and the pinks, these 2 projects will go on the loom. But because it has the lighter colors in here, I think when it weaves into a basket weave and it's over under 2, I think what'll end up happening is you'll have areas that will pool, and you'll have areas that are higher contrast, but the overall piece of fabric will have a lot of drape because of that twill structure, that sort of twill adjacent structure that you get in basket weave, and a very overall sort of homogeneous piece of fabric, nothing fancy in terms of the weaving. And my plan is to be able to have enough that I could do some sort of a cardigan with it, so some sort of a small garment, even if it's just something, you know, relatively short with sort of shortish arms, like maybe 3/4 length. I have a couple of patterns that I've been looking at that I would probably have enough yarn. Each of these is about 500 yards. I think they might actually even be more, between 500 and 600 yards. And I was expecting, when I wound them off, the yardage was about 700, but I think because of the cormo and because of the active crimp in there, I fully expect that these have shrunk quite a bit. So I'm sort of expecting around 500 to 600 yards for each skein. That's more than enough to get a fairly decent sized piece of fabric out. So that's my hope. Yeah. Eve, that's a great question. Where would you get Kevlar? I have no idea. I thought I would start with like Home Depot or something. I would start with a home hardware store and then go from there. Christine says, I've never heard of Kevlar brake bands. This is a Daedalus thing. So I've only just kind of learned about this. They're a little bit thicker. They're a little bit firmer, and they have sort of a certain look to them. I don't know if I can reach my dove because it's just over here. Let me see if I can grab it for you guys. So if you look, hang on. I'm just gonna wind up my leader because otherwise it'll get in the way. On the back here, this here is Kevlar, and it's very stiff. It's braided. I don't know if you can see that particularly well, but it's braided. You have to cut it. It's like nylon rope. You cut it and you use super glue to secure the ends. And over here, there's a knot to secure. And actually, if you don't put this spring on the right way, this will make noise against the bobbin. And then this, I'm sorry, it's so dark. It's just because it's black. This sort of tightens on here. This is your tensioner, and you tighten it and loosen it based on what you're trying to do. And I really found as I was plying that I did have to tighten it up. But that's the Kevlar brake band there, and it does get a little bit tarnished from the bobbin. For sure, there's that tarnishing of it, and I've seen Felicia's photos of Dion's, and it does get pretty black, but like it never breaks down. It's just tough. So just something to think about. I'm curious to hear what other people, if they've tried it. I'm just curious. But I do like it. I will say, yeah. Yeah, oh, that's a good point, Dion. Thank you. That is a good point. It will wear through wooden or plastic. So you can only use it if you have an aluminum bobbin drum. That is such a good point. I meant to mention that, and that is so true. Yes. I'm just catching up with, I know, right? Eve, turn it into a drinking game. Whatever, have a drink whenever I say back in the house. Totally. It's true. I've been saying it all the time. It's like, even I'm annoyed. All right, so those are my singles. I talked about the finishing of those singles quite a few shows ago. I went into quite a bit of detail, but basically what I did, just for those who missed a previous, I think it was episode 336 or 335, I talked quite extensively about the finishing. But basically what I did was I filled a sink of water with as tap hot as I could here at my mom's. And my mom's water tank is pretty hot. I think she runs it at 130 or 135. So it's pretty hot coming out. And I kept the sink draining until I got that hot water, and then I put the plug in. I couldn't put my hands into the water, so it was pretty warm. But then I added a little bit of eucalyptus, and then I submerged the skeins, but without agitating them or teasing them or anything like that. I submerged them. I actually used a metal spoon to just push them down, just very, very gently. And then I left them to soak, and they sat there in the sink for about 25 minutes. I set a timer. And then once the water had cooled after about 20-25 minutes and I could put my hand in it, I pulled the plug, but then I left it to drain. And then the skein, sort of untouched, I grabbed the one end where the ties were, put it on a clothing clothes hanger, took it outside and let it just drain. Like, I did not touch the yarn as much as possible to keep it as smooth as possible. And it drained sort of into the garden sort of thing, and it just hung there. And I purposely chose days where it was really, really warm outside and it could dry relatively quickly. And then I moved it around on the clothes hanger until all of the little areas were dry. You know how like the fold around the neck of the clothes hanger, sometimes the yarn doesn't get quite dry in that area. So I just kept turning it to make sure that it dried evenly. And then once it was basically completely dry, then I snapped it and evened out the twist and sort of evened out the skein and just kind of gave it a little bit of a, snap. And then I let it finish drying, and I don't think I did anything after that. Yeah, then I just skeined it. So I just tried not to touch the surface of the yarn as much as possible, and it seems to have worked really well. So we'll see how it does on the loom, and that I will absolutely report back on. So let's move on, because what size will you size? Yeah, so Eve, you asked that last time too, and I've been thinking about it because you kind of planted like a bit of a seed in my brain, if you will, because I've been thinking about it. And because I said at the time that I really wasn't sure. What I was thinking about doing was actually spraying it with starch. So instead of actually sizing it and putting it into something and like actually soaking the yarn in something and sizing it, I was thinking about just doing spray on starch. So one of the techniques that Lisa was sharing one afternoon in weaving group is once you have it all warped and have it on your loom, just very gently, you don't have to put any tension on it at that point. You lift up half of your warp threads and spray them and let it dry, and spray it from beneath and let them dry, and then you switch them and spray the other half and let that dry. And then as you're going and as you're weaving, as you're working your way through your warp, you just keep spraying it and letting it dry. I thought I might try that. I've not had issues weaving with singles. We've talked about this a lot in the community and on the show. I did my entire Unit 1 Master Weaver with singles, and it went really, really well. So great question, because I think it's something that we keep coming back to again and again. Yeah, and Rebecca was saying that spray starch is what she used on her Brooklyn Tweed Loft warp, and it worked a treat. So she sprayed it on after the warp was just like that. So I actually think, because people have had really good results with it, I would really like to try it. So yeah, I think I'll probably do something like that. Yeah. All right, let's move on. Okay, so one of the things that Rebecca and I've been chatting about recently was is the fact that, you know, we have a lot of spindlers in our community. We have a lot of spindlers, and there's always things going on in the hashtag Spindles channel on the Slack group. And of course, we have Spindle Spun season coming up at the end of the month when the summer solstice and the winter solstice starts for the northern and southern hemispheres in the world. And so I've been carrying this around in the back of my car for the last 7 or 8 months. And one of the things that has kept me from actually taking it out of said car and out of the trunk is the weather. So if and the majority of the time when I'm at this field, at the soccer field with the kids, I go for a run because it's the one time that I can carve out an hour where I'm out anyways, I'm at the field anyways, I can go for a run. So I generally, before we leave, will grab all my running stuff and change and drop the kids, and then I head off for my run. So, but to that end, I have been working on this project for quite a long time because it's kind of been going in the background, and it's been sitting on my spindles for over a year. And I have 3 spindles completely finished. So some of these are Ed Pretty, these 2. And some of these are Bosworth. And so this is a Bosworth. These are Ed Pretties. These, I love these. I love all of these spindles. These are, I just love these. I could just spin on these for the rest of time in memoriam. I don't grab my suspended spindles very often because I do find it most comfortable to stand up when I'm suspended spindling. And while I do spend a lot of time standing, I don't often think about grabbing my spindles. And so Rebecca and I have both been really trying to center our spindling practice and trying to bring it forward and be more intentional about spending time with our spindles. This is something that I've really always wanted to do, and I think a lot of that is the influence of my dear friend Diana Twist, because she is so incredible about her spindling practice, and she's really made it a central part of her spinning practice. And she actually, more often than not, working on the wheel is the exception, not the rule, whereas with me it's the opposite. And because our life is so on the go and we're often out and we're, you know, doing things, I really need to remember and think about being more intentional about taking my spindles. So this project is actually another Melly Knits Batt from my friend Melissa. So this was October 2024 Guts Club. And it was, let me just remind myself, it was CVM, Gulf Coast Native, and Bombic silk. So the silk is what gives it that beautiful grello color. And I did this as a sample for her. She needed the month spun. And so I did that for her, gave it back to her. I think it was like 20 grams. And then she said, the last 70, just, you know, spin it for yourself and keep it and enjoy it. And I threw it on my spindles right away. And then I kind of got stalled. So one of the things that I need to do with these 2 spindles, these are my Ed Pretty spindles, is I need to deepen the groove on this one. The groove on this one is just not quite deep enough. See how with this one, the groove is really, really super deep. I know it's hard to see because of the dark, but I'll try and get the shadow. This is really, really dark. You can, really deep, sorry. I don't know if you can see it better from the top. There you go. Yeah, right there. It's much, much deeper. But with this one, the groove is too shallow. It's kind of barely there, and it needs to be like an actual slit. So I need to get this free and clear so that I can talk to Ed about that. But then I realized that because these spindles were quite full and they're not sort of behaving anymore in terms of spinning, I went and grabbed, I thought I had put this in the sea can and I didn't have it, but I found it this morning. So I've got one more. This is it. This is the last bundle of fiber. And this is one of my other Bosworth spindles. This is probably my absolute most favorite spindle that I own. I just love this spindle so much. It's a walnut. Is it walnut? Yeah, walnut and maple. It's about 27 or 28 grams. And I've just got this to do. So hopefully by next show, I will have this project completely finished, cleared, because I have another project that I really want to do on my spindles that will take me through Spindle Spun Summer. It's some Hanui luxury silk, all the things from my friend Megan of Bramble Ridge, and I just like want to savor it and savor the spin. And I think I'm going to do it as a big combo spin, and I would love to do it on my spindles. So that is, I'm partially telling you to keep myself accountable so that on the 16th this project is done. And even if it's not plied, that I've made my plying balls and I can spend June 16th spinning along with everyone and ply. That's my plan. To stay accountable to get this, get these projects done. Okay, now we have kind of an interesting project. This is not a new project. Actually, while I get it out and while I make a whole bunch of noise because it's gonna make crinkles and stuff, we'll do a divider so that it's a new topic, because this is wheel spinning now, and I won't ruin the microphone and make you guys listen to crinkling. Okay, so this is part of my Make 9. So I wanted to show you some updated, my updated Make 9. I've actually been making pretty good progress on my Make 9. So this is where I am at with it currently. This is what it looked like when I first started. So this was my initial Make 9. I wanted to do the Auguste cardigan. I wanted to process and finish my Lincoln Jacob spin. And knit it up, no, that's not right. That the Lincoln it's not Jacob. Dion and I figured out that it's Suffolk. My Lincoln Suffolk spin, so I have to update that on my Make 9 grid. I want to get that processed and carded and whatnot. That's one of my major projects wait for it, when I'm back in the house. And then far right is the floral napkins. Those are woven. They are off the loom. They need to be washed and then hemmed. And then the overshot scarves are a bit stalled because of something. I kind of deviated with that one a little bit, but I'll share more about that with you probably more into July. My champagne cardigan that I want to knit, or actually it's a pullover that I want to knit, I don't think I'm going to do the champagne after all. I think I'm going to pivot on that a little bit, but definitely get that yarn knit up. I need to dye it first. And then the far right there in the middle is Toothy. So that is what we're going to talk about. And I need some feedback from you guys and some ideas from you guys. And then on the bottom is my Romney spin that's for Tour de Fleece. And then the Half Fisherman's Rib that's my finished sweater that I'm done. And the Sweet Georgia combo that became the vest. So this is actually where I'm at with my Make 9. Like, it's only the beginning of June. We're not even a full 6 months into the year yet, because technically that's sort of the end of June. And I've already got 4 of my 9 done, which I'm feeling pretty chuffed about, considering that we've been here at my mom's. I don't have access to some of my fiber prep equipment, and I definitely want to pivot a little bit with that project in the middle, the champagne pullover. So feeling pretty good. Feeling pretty happy with that. So, Toothy. This was from West Coast Color, my friend Lynn, from years and years and years ago. I bought this a long time ago. This is the fiber, and I'll hold it up closely to the camera so that you can see. It's kind of this, like, it's got Perendale in it and like Shetland, and like it's just kind of a conglomerate of like a whole bunch of different stuff, and they call it Toothy because it's a little bit coarse, a little bit toothy, for lack of a better word. It comes from the wool pool, and it's sort of a coarse medium wool, but there's long bits in here and short bits in here, and the particular colorway that I got was sort of this kettle dyed grello over top of the brown fiber, and I'm down to my last 2 bundles of 100 grams each, so like I am almost done. And this was something that I really wanted to finish for, I was hoping to have it finished by the time we moved back home, but I didn't make it a priority. But I did pull it out a couple of weeks ago and started spinning. I just grabbed whatever bobbin was on my wheel and started spinning away. And this is the first bobbin of probably 3 or 4 more. So I have this to spin, and then I have this minus a third. So I've got like two or three more of these like stripped down kind of thing. This one isn't stripped down yet. So like I'm getting there, I'm getting to the end, but and actually I've already done a ton of this yarn. So this is from several years ago. I started this project. I'm actually not totally sure when I started this project. Let me see actually when I started this project. I'm curious because it's been at the top of my Handspun page for, yeah, November of 2022. I started this project. November of 2022. So right at the end of 2022. So this will be a 4-year project by the time I finish. And I think what happened was I just kind of got burned out on it. So I have these 4 skeins finished and they're all quite compacted because they've been sitting stored. But those are the 4. Sorry, it's so dark. The camera's trying to lighten and adjust. They're all 2-ply. They all are roughly a similar grist. They're all sort of the same, spun the same. And the idea is that I'll have enough yardage by the end to warp and weft plain weave, just over under one, really, really super plain weave, enough fabric to make a small jacket. And what I'm thinking is something along the lines of sort of a, it's always been the plan right from November when I started this, because I bought this at Knit City of 2022, and then I sort of started spinning it, and I think like it was like $12 per 100 grams. So I think like I think I bought 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I bought 6 of the Toothy, like of these 100 grams. I think I bought 6 of them. Yeah, I think so, 6. And my plan was always some sort of a jacket. And the idea was for it to be a bridge project from a small jacket, a small, simple jacket project. So lined, something really simple. I have in my mind what I would like to do. Something not cropped, but shorter, that would be open at the front, a very simple collar, kind of like those quilted jackets that are really popular right now, that are out and about right now, as an intro and as a bridge to making an actual coat. That's my plan. I have made coats before. I've sewn coats before, and I've sewn rain jackets before. This is not out of my realm of being able to do this. My mom is a beautiful sewer. I don't do a lot of sewing. It's something that I really lament. It is something that I would really, really like to do more of, and to have more space in my making life to sew. But it's not been something that it's not something that I carve out intentional time to do, and that's something that I've been thinking a lot about over the last 6 months to a year. So my issue, this is an ish me, not an ish you, is that this has been stashed and tucked away for so long, it absolutely won't draft. So that's fun. So what I'm thinking, when you're at the wheel and you're like, if I strip it down like I did the other one, I sort of end up with this length, right? And then I go along and I sort of pre-draft it, but like it's just kind of super compacted. And then when I start to spin, it either just falls apart, and then you're left with kind of this clump of short bits. And then you sort of try to draft through the next little bit, and same thing, it just kind of all falls apart, and it's really, really difficult to spin that. I think if I hadn't spun this before, I probably would have thought, oh, like it's just kind of old and a little bit brittle, and I wouldn't have really thought about it. But I think part of it is that it's been wrapped up like this, unintentionally. It just kind of got stored this way. It's been wrapped up quite tight like this for a long time. So I have about 130-ish grams to go, maybe 150 maybe, but I think that's being generous, What I'm thinking is, you nailed it, Eve, is that I should just recard it. It's roving anyways. It's a little bit beaten up. It's not like Lynn sold it as like, this is not the best of the best. This is just for fun and go play and make something a little bit coarse and spin it long draw and just enjoy it. Because like that's the whole point. It's just something, you know, that otherwise would have ended up on the burn pile. And it's from one of the local Canadian mills. I don't know if you can still get it or not, but it's just a conglomerate of like, you know, kind of Canadian wool, long bits, short bits. So do you think I should card it? Do you think that would fix my problems? My concern is that these two skeins will end up looking a bit different than the other two. So what my solve was for that was that I would save these two and keep them separate and use them as the weft so that the yarns aren't being mixed too much. Or I warp holding one of the carded skeins and one of the old skeins together and then alternate them in the weft as much as possible and kind of mix them together as much as possible. So Dion says card it, Eve says card it. I feel like it's worth it, right? It's worth it to card it and kind of try to fix this a little bit, just so that it's not because I can't not spin it. It would just be a nicer spinning experience because it's been sitting for so long and it's so compacted. So like, I feel like it would be worth it to kind of spend the time to fix it and finish this project. Am I like, or should I just abandon it? But I feel like I should fix it. I feel like I have spun so much already and I have well over 1,000 yards already. It's worth it to finish it, right? Yeah, I think I should card it. Yeah, Rebecca says card it. If you enjoy spinning it more, who cares if it's different? Yeah, and I can mix them. So yeah, exactly, Deirdre. I'm really hoping that this is a project that I can work with my mom. I think what I'll do is leave my sewing machine. Actually, no, I do need to take my sewing machine home because I've got to get a couple things hemmed. My bitmap towels, and I've got to hem my floral napkins. But because I need my washing machine to wash and finish those two things, that weaving, and then I'll get them hemmed properly. Mom's washing machine would just decimate that stuff. So once I have my washing machine back, I can wash those, get them hemmed, and then this would be kind of up next. And yes, I will definitely use my mom for some help. I will post in the Slack channel the little jacket kind of quilted coat thing that I'm thinking about. Some of you will recognize sort of the idea of it as soon as you see it. Okay, so we agree. Worth it to finish it, worth it to card it, worth it to spend that time doing that. I really appreciate that, you guys. Eve says I have a compacted braid from 2020 that I need to card. I tried steaming it, but it didn't fully work. It's funny how sometimes some of that stuff just doesn't work. I was wondering about steaming this, but then I thought, I don't have access to some of my stuff right now. So I was thinking, okay, what could I do to get this project going that I actually have something, accessible to me. All right. Okay, the last thing I wanted to share with you was my my spin to weave finished advancing twill stole. I'm really happy with how it finished up. So let's do that next. Okay, so this came off the loom last week, and actually the reason why I got it off, finished it, was because I wanted to make sure, I've got 2 woven projects that I need to do for Weft magazine, and one of them was a relatively easy win. And so I put it on the loom, I wove it all off in a few days, and it's done. And actually that article I'm really excited about because I think it'll be very helpful for people who are newer weavers. And so that is off the loom, waiting to be washed and finished as well. And it was in Cotylin, so it was just a joy to weave. And it was simple, and then but I had to get this off first. So for those of you who haven't seen this yet, this was a, where are my photos? So this was the draft. I chatted already about how this worked and what I did with this, and my weaving process, if you will, of how I worked through all of this, and how I did the advancing twill, the different drafts, and playing around with different treadlings and different threadings, and how I sort of ended up with what I ended up choosing in the end. So in the end, the woven pattern that's down at the bottom, it's sort of in the middle row at the very bottom, in the middle there is the one that I ended up going with. I did end up doing just 4 shaft, mostly because I felt like with the colors and the yarn and the set, anything more complicated with more shafts and stuff would just be lost. So that was what I ended up going with. And I had some photos of the warping process. And these were the 2 yarns originally. So both Bramble Ridge. The one here, that's just down below me here, was called Mushroom Hunt. And the one up top to the right, I think you're right, is The Price of Eggs. And both of these I spun, oh my goodness, when did I spin these? I'm curious now, when did I spin these? Because they weren't that long ago, but they weren't super recent. So I spun Mushroom Hunt between January of 2025 through to June of 2025. And I think the reason why it got delayed was because I was working on a bunch of other stuff at the time. So it was through the first half of 2025. And then The Price of Eggs was right after. And I did that one from March of 2025 through till July of 2025. So both of these basically were spun about a year ago. Which is pretty cool. So what ended up happening was Mushroom Hunt, the darker yarn, became the warp, and Price of Eggs, the lighter one, became the weft. And this is it on the loom. When I first started, I hem stitched. This was it being warped. I had 2 warping chains. My set was 15 ends per inch. 15 picks per inch, spreading the warp across the back of the loom, getting ready to wind on. And what I loved about this actually was the light, like it ended up striping quite intentionally. So the brown came up 3 times, the light creamy blue came up twice, and the orange was kind of the bridge between it all. I really liked how that ended up coming out. And then this was, of course, threading, and that was it. So now it is off the loom. So let me just back up a little bit so that you guys can see how this came out. So you can see that in the darker areas in the middle here and on the edges, you ended up with a much higher contrast. Because remember, The Price of Eggs was basically the entire skein was this color, the whole skein. So you end all of this pattern and all of this contrast in the middle and on the edges, but then in the softer stripes, you end up with pooling and low contrast. And then this is it at the one end, quite a long fringe. I'll cut this down and finish it closer, like once we get back in the house. Take a drink. And I am going to leave the fringe quite long. I think I'll probably leave it as long as I possibly can. Because I don't want to lose all that hand spun. All I had left after weaving this was this. This is from The Price of Eggs. This is all I have left. It's about 20 yards approximately. And I do love having like a souvenir. I call them souvenirs. I do love having a souvenir sample skein for later to sort of see what the original yarn before it became warp or weft looked like, and how it spun up, how the colors twisted together, the high and low. This was very low contrast, but it was the same colors as Mushroom Hunt, just much more muted. Talk about tint. It was a tint. Whereas Mushroom Hunt was the full saturation of the colors. So same colors, just different tints. And then you can see that the advancing twill pattern just in the middle here, I'll hold this up so you can see how the advancing twill pattern comes out in those higher contrast areas. So if you were standing behind me at a show and I was wearing this, you could come up behind and like you would see this very gentle patterning through the stole without it kind of being so overt that it completely it competes with the colors and competes with what's happening in the warp and the weft. I really like it. I really like how it came out. When it first came off the loom, I was sort of like, it's okay. But it's been sitting here on my desk and sitting on the back of my chair. And the more that I sort of look at it and the more that I sort of, you know, just have it, I really, really have ended up really liking it. I really like it with the green. It kind of surprised me a little bit, if you will. Yeah. So, oh, shawl is gorgeous. Thank you, Dion. Thank you so much. How do you press woolen woven items? So this, it really depends on what you're dealing with. So a lot of woven wool is woolen. It's spun woolen and it is woolen, and that's why people size their warps and wefts and whatnot, their warps, and that's why there's entire studies and books and whatnot on how to weave with wool, because it is really different than weaving with like cotton and plant fibers and some of the other, especially weaving yarns that are available on the market. With wool, when you're weaving with wool, you really are just placing it in the weft. And I find, like, as I'm beading, I've thrown my pick, I've thrown my shuttle, I've got my wool pick, and I'm ready to beat it into place. It's not like with cotton where you pull quite firmly and then beat and change. With wool, I pull the beater toward me gently, I place it where I want it to be, and then I change my shed to lock it in place. So you're not, like, I'm not beating really heavily. I'm kind of placing it, change, beater back. So beater forward, place the yarn, change your treadle, and then beater back. And it's just a gentler way of weaving. I think it's one of the reasons why I really like it. I like weaving with cotton, and I like cotton, and I like some of the other weaving yarns and whatnot, but I do really enjoy weaving with wool. I find it very gentle. You're really thinking about your set. You have to check your set. You've got to make sure that you're beating the same way each time, because you're placing your wool versus beating it. It has a real rhythm to it when you weave with wool. I think it's one of the reasons why rigid heddle weaving has really been embraced by the larger fiber community, with absolutely like good intention, is because when you have the heddle of the rigid heddle loom and you bring it forward, you can't beat really hard. You can't bring it forward like with a swinging beater or with a my beater's not a swinging beater. What's it called? Just the more conventional beater. You know, they hinge for a hinge beater. You know, they hinge forward, and they can be, sometimes they're quite heavy, and sometimes the wood of the beater is quite heavy, and sometimes the rattle in the beater itself can be quite heavy as well. So all of those different pieces of your beater in your floor loom can add to that weight depending on the manufacturer and the size of the loom and all that kind of stuff. So as you bring your beater forward, it has a tendency, it can have a lot of weight behind it. Whereas with the rigid heddles, you unhook it, pull it forward, and you can't get that unless you like really hoe and like really bang it. It really lends itself to placing that wool pick, and then you go back, and then you place the wool pick, and then you go back, and then you place the, like, it real, I really get why rigid heddle and wool just work so beautifully together, because it really encourages you to place your pick. So I can't remember where I was going with this, but when you take those wool items off the loom, your finishing process is quite different. You're not going to sort of treat it the way that you would a plant fiber or cotton, especially. Cotton's kind of the big one that most people weave with. So Eve, to answer your question, sort of every step of the process when you're weaving with wool, whether it's woolen spun or worsted spun, is different from weaving with plant fibers anyways. You have to take into account if there's silk in there, because of course you don't want to use really super hot water if that's the case, because you can suede your silk. Whether or not there's other fibers in there that you need to take into account. With this, the way that I'll finish this, once we get back into the house, once we're back home, I'll put it into a warm soapy water bath. I'm one thing that I'm just feeling very spoiled recently. I'm finally going to have a laundry sink. It has been a long time coming. I finally will have a laundry sink. So in the laundry sink, I'll fill it, you know, the bottom of it enough to give me enough water to work with for this, but it'll be quite warm. Add some eucalyptus. I'll put this in and I'll really like move it around and really agitate it quite aggressively and make sure that I'm agitating all of it. And then I'll leave it to sit for a while until the water's fully cooled. I usually wear rubber gloves because the water's too warm for my hands. And then once it cools down a little bit more and I can put my hands in, I'll pull it out. I'll give it a really good press in a towel. So roll it up in a towel, get as much of the water out as possible. I might even throw it in the washing machine on a spin cycle with no water. And then I actually will throw it in the dryer. And I will throw it in the dryer damp dry, and I'll run it in the dryer on permanent press for probably 10 or 15 minutes to really kind of fluff it up. And then I'll look at the fabric and see what I think. And I'll go from there. So yeah, really cool. I know, famous last words. I know, Pauline. I know. All right. So that is that project. I'm very happy with it. I may even keep wearing it. It's so cozy. And it's soft. I'm surprised. With the BFL Massam in there and the Hanui, it's actually softer than I thought it would. So once it's washed and finished, it'll be interesting to see if it softens even a bit more, because this is quite, like, I could wear it next to my skin, no problem. So good to keep in mind. All right, let's talk about knitting. Okay, so I have a couple of projects on the needles that I've been working on, and I was going to talk about my Moonset tee first because it's back here on the dress form, but I think what I'll do is actually talk about my Oolong tee first. So the Oolong is this really cute pattern that I actually started previously and never finished because I messed up on the lace pattern on the front. I didn't realize there were two panels and I only did one, and I got more than halfway up the body and I was like, that's it. This is going on timeout. And then Megan of Bramble Ridge was having a sale on some of her wool linen yarn, 70-30 wool linen, wool flax. And I've wanted to try this yarn for a while because I used it in a recent Pearl magazine article, and this is how I've done another full repeat of the lace, and I just love how it's coming out. Isn't that just so pretty? It's these beautiful leaves that are kind of meant to be like long, like oolong leaves, like tea, the oolong tea, the oolong plant. I think that's what it's meant to be. I could be wrong, but that's what it reminds me of. I just think it's so pretty. It's gonna be gorgeous when it blocks out. This yarn is the colorway Squall, and it's kind of this gray bluey green that's really pretty, very lightweight. You start off with a twisted rib. It's knit from the bottom up, and I'm just gonna slowly work away at it until I get to the point where I think I've got enough length, and then I'll start, I'll put it on the dress form, measure, do a couple of things, and then see what I think. But really happy with this. I am knitting one size up, just to give myself lots and lots of ease. The summers are warm. Nobody wants to be stuffed into something tight and something with not a lot of positive ease. And I am doing the one that's the tank top. There's a tee as well. But I'm going to do the tank one because that was the one that I saw being worn at Knit City Calgary back in 2024, and I just loved it on her, and I've wanted to do one ever since. So I'm going to do the tank, and then I'll go from there. So really happy with how that's going so far, and it's not been onerous or difficult. I've been really enjoying it. My Moonset tee, whew, I am having trouble making a lot of progress on it, and I know why. Okay, this is the Moonset tee, and I finished off the body. So it's got down here this gorgeous, I'm sorry that it's not up close, but I can pull it off, Diana, my dress form. I can pull it off of her in just a moment and show you, but this is all a 3-stitch I-cord bind off, and I did lengthen the body. So once this is washed and blocked and kind of left to sort itself out, it'll kind of make more sense, but it is a bit long, and the idea is that I'm hoping that I can kind of tuck it into the front of my jeans a little bit, so it would kind of tuck in like that or tuck in like that. And I did, again, I made one size up, but I think it'll be enough positive ease that it won't feel tight. I'm really hoping that this is for like this shoulder seasons to wear. It's got just a lovely feel to it. It's that Jacob from Cold Valley Farms that I processed last summer. And then what's really slowed me down is the sleeve. So it's got a short sleeve. You pick up along your knitted edge here, and then you basically just do very gentle decreases over about 4 or 5 inches. I made mine 5 inches, and then another I-cord bind off. And the I-cord bind off is taking forever. It's so long, it's taking forever. So, and then the last thing that I also need to do is seam up the back of the neck here. So this is actually 2 pieces, and this needs a seam here. So you cast on at the back here, build the back, and then you go back and build this, your collar, build it out, build it out, build it out. And then when you get to here, you build out each front, and then you connect all of it and knit in the round. There is a little bit of striping, as you can see. There's a little bit of lightness here. There's a little bit of darkness here. You've got a bit of darkness over here. But overall, I'm really happy. It doesn't look like there's different colorways or different skeins, or that there's like different things going on. In real life, it's really warm. It's definitely a warm brown, and it's all of that brown from the fleece that's heathered in there. But without being like overall perfectly homogeneous and perfectly gray. It's still got that little bit of texture and a little bit of nuance. Really happy with this. But let me tell you, you guys, that I-cord bind off, holy smokes, it is not for the faint of heart when you have like 200 plus stitches. Oh my goodness, it takes forever. Okay, that brings us to our next conversation. So I have been thinking about this kind of thing that happens. Oh, you'll sneeze and it'll be done. No, no. I sneezed last week. It's still not done. Bless you, Rebecca. I know what you mean, because Rebecca's absolutely right. She said like I-cord bind offs are tedious, but at least they're mindless. You're absolutely right. And I think the reality is like in the evenings, there's been so much going on, and it's because of getting ready to get back into the house. It's just been like too much, that like by the time the evening rolls around, I just don't have any energy to pull it out and do it. And it is so mindless. And Rebecca's absolutely right. I should just pull it out and do it. But I just, when you're just kind of out of spoons by 7 o'clock in the evening, and you just don't have any energy left. So I've definitely been kind of putting it off and procrastinating about it. And I would have been done this last week if I had made it a priority, and I just haven't. However, this has gotten me thinking as I'm getting to the end of my Moonset tee, because it will be done for next show. It will be done. So I got into this really interesting conversation with my friend Megan from Guild. She's one of my dear Guild girls friends. we sort of have this like, you know, group that we sort of have deemed, we call ourselves the Guild Girls. And Megan has this eye and this, I don't even know what to call it. It's like an aesthetic or a skill, a talent, I don't know what to call it, for picking up on those patterns, you know, that when they get published or when they get, you know, put out there, she just has a real eye for being able to put things together. And she has a largely me-made wardrobe. Like she largely wears handmade clothing, you know, both sewn, knit, etc., etc. And it really got me thinking this past week about this whole idea of like those projects that call to us, those patterns that we see, those finished objects, those test knits that we see that we're like, I really want to make that. And they just call to us. And it kind of got me thinking, because I have been looking at, over the last little while, a couple of projects. My friend Megan at Bramble Ridge, again, she was doing a blowout of her wool linen yarn. So I had bought the Squall, but I had seen this colorway on her website, and it's kind of like a cornflower yellow. It's very, very pale yellow, and it was a one of a kind that she did, but it's DK. The Squall is fingering weight, and so this is DK. And so I was looking at different patterns that are out there on Ravelry, and I've come across a few different ones, but these were the two that really called to me to make next. So this is the Bliss Tank by Alicia Plummer. Very open gauge, very loose. It's knit the bottom up, and then you do the fronts and the backs, and you bind off the arms with a 3-needle bind off. It's a pattern. It was a thank you to her community that when she published this. And then the other one that I've been looking at, and I've wanted to do this one for eons, since Sam of our community sent it to me and was like, all I see when I see this is you. This is called the Pyramid Cloud, and it's got these beautiful, very small buttons that run down the back of it. But what's really cool about this is you can actually reverse it. So you can wear the buttons to the front, or you can wear the buttons to the back. And then it's got kind of these cap sleeves, raglan style, very, very deep raglan that starts here and works its way out almost horizontal, which is really, really, really pretty. And so these two patterns have kind of been bouncing around in my mind over the last week or so, and I've been thinking about them. And it kind of got me thinking at when I was chatting with Megan on Friday about this whole idea. I basically said to her, like, she needs to pick what I knit from now on, because I love her aesthetic and I love everything that she picks. And I'm like, you just pick. I'll show you the yarn, I'll show you the gauge, I'll tell you what I'm thinking, and then you pick the pattern for me. And she, like, obviously laughed and was like, you know, she's like, I could do that. I was like, yeah, because she's got that aesthetic, she's got that eye. And it got me thinking, you know, one of the things, so it kind of, I came up with, as I was thinking about this over the course of the week, sort of a set of 3 like steps that, as we're trying to figure out and build a handmade wardrobe, there's sort of, you know, 3 or 4 steps that we have to go through, because we can't make everything. As much as we want to, we just can't. And the first sort of step, if you will, is this sort of idea of discerning. And so I'll let you guys watch this as we go. But this is my queue on Ravelry, and I've been building my queue for years, and I consider it something that's kind of living and breathing. It's always changing. And it's my way of figuring out which projects I want to make and why. And it looks really long because it's over 2 pages. It's 2.5, almost 3 pages. But what I look for when I look through my queue is I look for, like, is there something that I'm trying to fill a hole in my wardrobe? Is there something, if I'm making for someone else, am I trying to fill a hole in their wardrobe? And what does that filling that hole look like? Why is it a hole? Is it something that I've been struggling with for a while? I also think about, choosing this specific project or this particular project help me stash bust? Is this something that I can, use up some stuff in my stash, get some stuff out? Is there a reason that I want to stash bust those particular materials? Maybe it's yarn that I've been holding on to for a really super long time, or it's fibers I've been hanging on to a long time. Maybe it's just time to use it up. Maybe there's expiry dates where I'm starting to get a bit worried about how long it's been in my stash for. The Toothy is a good example where it's getting really compacted. Are there certain fibers or materials that are calling to us? Is it because it's the time of year? I've been really noticing the last 3 or 4 months, I've been looking intentionally for projects that are out of lighter materials. I want to work with plant fibers. I want to work with something that's just lighter in my lap, lighter to drag around with me. I don't want to work on a big sweater right now. That's not where I'm at. And it's funny because generally I don't pay attention to the seasons for that. But recently, over the last 3 to 6 months, I've really noticed that like I don't want a bunch of heavy wool in my lap. And if I do want wool in my lap, I want something lighter and a smaller project. Sometimes when we're figuring out what pattern we want to make next, or something that we want to fill a hole in our wardrobe with, it's partially that we want to try a new technique, we want to try a new approach. Maybe there's a new tool that we just bought or received that we want to try out, and we want to find a project that will allow us to explore that new tool. Sometimes it's a new idea, something that we haven't done before, or something that we want to play around with. So sometimes it's not so much about the garment itself or about the pattern or about designing something ourselves that we're trying to fill. Sometimes it's earlier in the process. It's a fiber technique, a fiber prep technique. It's a spinning technique. It's a certain fiber we want to work with. I've noticed, like with Dion, for example, and she might chime in here as well, often she starts with what she wants to prep and what she wants to pull out of her stash. And she'll start to pull things out of her trunk, and she'll start to put things together. And that sort of becomes the brainchild for what she wants to work on next. And the pattern and the idea for the garment seems to come later. Whereas I tend to work the opposite way, and I sort of start to think about what garment I want to make, and I'll work backwards. So we all kind of work in a slightly different way. So that's kind of the first part is the discerning. The second part of the process, as I know for myself, is the choosing. So this is a little bit different from discerning. Discerning is sort of like, where do we start? It's sort of thinking about like a vision board. What's the general direction that we're going in? But then we start to actually make choices. And for me, I start to think about what colors I want to work in. Do I have those colors of materials? Like, do I have the right color? Do I have to start thinking about dyeing something? Do I need to purchase something? Am I willing to dye? Dyeing over the last 8 months hasn't even been an option for me. So that's something that I can't do. Sometimes there's textures or alternative fibers that we want to incorporate because we aren't, but maybe we aren't super comfortable working with those fibers. Maybe we've got a learning curve, maybe we don't have access to them, maybe it's really super out of our comfort zone. So then we're starting to think about like what resources we need to have access to. Is there a teacher out there that could help us? Is there teaching content on wool and spinning that we can access? Stuff that we've done in the past that would help you, people in the community that you can bounce ideas off of. So it doesn't mean that we're not going to choose that thing, but maybe we need to do a bit of research. Thinking about the tools that we do have and whether or not we want to include that in our particular project. Sometimes I just don't want a card. Like sometimes the drum carder just feels like too much and I don't want to do it. And maybe I need to save this particular project for later and choose something else. Patterns specifically can be really difficult to sift through, and this comes up again and again and again. Sometimes it can help identify garments and wardrobe pieces that we wouldn't necessarily choose for ourselves. So this is where my friend Megan comes in. She's got a real eye for design. So does my friend Sybil. They really see color and texture and garments differently. Sybil, because of her fine arts background, and often people will see something that we don't, or they'll put colors together that we maybe wouldn't put together. So talk to your community, talk to your friends. Various patterns, resources, and places to download and purchase patterns is changing. We don't only have to use Ravelry now, which is really nice. So for those who don't want to or can't use Ravelry, there are other places, but we need to think about the cost, whether or not the patterns are tech edited, whether or not they're photographed well. If there's a sweater pattern where the model is really twisted into a very odd position and there aren't multiple photos of that garment straight on or from the side, very like plain, and they're just standing there in a very plain, natural position, I often won't look at the pattern any further. Because if the model is all twisted up into a pretzel to model it to make it look good, there's probably something wrong with the sweater and it doesn't sit right. So I always look for those very simple, straightforward photos where the model is straight on or just sideways, where we can see the garment clearly. And that's really, really important for sweaters. Sometimes the techniques in a garment can detract from our enjoyment of making the garment, because if it's not in our wheelhouse and it's going to take time to learn that technique and to master it, the tubular cast on comes to mind. If it's something that you haven't mastered yet and you can't do it really super evenly, it can make your cast on edge look really, really uneven. And it's just something that takes practice. So it might take you a couple of times to cast on. Or we just don't want to bother. It's just not something, maybe we don't have the spoons, maybe we just don't, and we don't have the energy and we don't want to learn a new technique or master it. That's not the pattern to choose at that time. I have really found that where I save and keep my patterns has become increasingly important. Sometimes when you've bought and paid for a pattern, you want to make sure that you have access to it and that you can access that PDF. So whether you store it in Ravelry, whether you store it in some sort of an online cloud resource like Google Drive, or wherever you save it on your hard drive in some sort of a file system, because I think what happens for me after a couple of years is I forget what patterns I have. And it's nice to be able to go back and search and figure out, like, maybe there's a pattern I've already bought that I haven't made yet that would bring me a lot of joy. Many patterns often appear very similar to one another, but they often have really key differences. So sometimes a different designer can fit you a little bit better than other designers. So if you know that there's two sweaters that are very, very similar, this is my rule of thumb. If there's two sweaters that are very, very similar, choose the one that comes from the designer that you know fits you well, unless you want to branch out and try something different. But ask friends about their experiences with fit, especially friends that are a similar size to you. Think about inclusive sizing. That goes for both larger and smaller sizes, because sometimes the sizes are just sort of too in the middle, and they don't capture enough people, and so I sometimes find that some of the patterns, there's so much ease built into the pattern, and a lot of ease doesn't look great on me up top. And so I need a slightly different size. And do I really want to do a ton of sweater math? Generally, no. So because I need different sizes in different parts of my body, I often look at the sizes to see, like, what's the range, just in case there isn't a size that's included that I need. So that's sort of choosing. And often by the time you get to the point where you are at that point where you're actually choosing a pattern, it's maybe something that you've had your eye on for a while. Maybe you've seen it on Instagram. Maybe you've seen some test knits. The projects tab in Ravelry is really helpful to see what people do with a pattern. Sometimes there's things about a pattern that looks great on the person that modeled it, and then you see it in the projects tab and you're like, this doesn't work on 90% of people. And you sort of think, well, what are the chances of it working on me realistically? And I'll sometimes leave a pattern at that point and find something else. So when we start to eliminate and narrow our scope, I think this can often be really difficult, and I really struggle with this sometimes. So like, for example, the difference between the Bliss tank and the Pyramid Cloud, for example, one of them has buttons, one of them is cardigan adjacent, it's got a raglan shaping, it's got proper shoulders, you're gonna need more yarn, it's a finer gauge. The Bliss is done with a really open gauge, it's a true tank top, it has a very different aesthetic. you need different yarn for them. Sometimes this can lead to a sense of sadness that you're eliminating things that you really do want to make, and that you just don't have time to make everything, or you just don't have the yarn resources to make everything. We always joke that, oh, I'll just spin for it, but it's not always that simple. It takes time to spin yarn. That really is the bottleneck of this entire thing. Many of us are spinners with a capital S, and we want to spend the majority of our time spinning. And you know, the knitting is kind of an afterthought because we probably should do something with a lot of our yarn, but we don't necessarily want to make all the things because we want to get back to our spinning. So then it becomes a really honest conversation with ourselves about what we really actually want to wear. And sometimes that can be bittersweet to pass on something that we had really high hopes for ourselves. And I will often, about 2 or 3 times a year, I will go through my queue and I will be brutal and I will cull it. And often I make sure that the pattern is still saved in my favorites, but I will cull it out of my queue. And it's always hard. I always struggle, because often I end up with a group of patterns that I've queued that all kind of have the same look. It's an idea I've been processing and mulling over in my brain, and I'll save 4 or 5 patterns, and then I come back later and I'm really brutal about getting rid of them and culling them and getting rid of them, because I know I'm never gonna make them. Swatches. Swatches can really help a ton with the decision process, because sometimes we've spun something up and we've made all this yarn and we have really high hopes for a specific pattern, and then we get the swatch in front of us and we're like, yeah, no. And so again, bittersweet, sometimes a bit sad, but if your swatch is big enough to give you an accurate picture of what the fabric is actually going to look like, what the drape is going to be like, the texture, the hand of the yarn, it can really give you a good idea of whether or not you're going in the right direction. Rebecca did a really great talk on the Wool Circle recently about swatches lying, and just taking that into account and making sure that you're relaxed when you're knitting or crocheting your swatches, that you treat them exactly the same way that you your finished object, and it gives you better information. If you're planning on putting your finished object in the washing machine, you need to put your swatch in the washing machine. If you're going to block it aggressively and pin it out aggressively, you need to do the same with your swatch. I personally don't block and pin out my swatches really aggressively. I often actually don't pin them at all. When wool is stretched, it can often become misshapen and misformed, and it leads to swatches lying. And so I tend to just lay it out and kind of pat it, and I let it just behave naturally as it dries. And I do try to treat it as closely to how I would in the washing process to how I would the sweater. Sometimes it's hard, but it's true. Dion says, do you queue patterns that you don't own? I do, yeah. My Ravelry queue, Christine says, is more of a things I'd like to make list, and that's very much what it is for me. I would take it one step further. For me, it's not just things I'd like to make, it's things I'm planning to make. I think of it as like a 2 to 3 year plan of where I would like to be in 2 to 3 years. It often doesn't work, but that's the plan. Eve says that she stores her patterns in Dropbox. That's a great place to store them. My Dropbox is always too full, so it doesn't work for me, but that's a great place. Drive is another one. And then once something is cast on, I really try not to attach myself to it too closely for that first number of inches as I'm building the yoke or the back neck, or as I'm building the bottom. I really try to keep myself a little bit separate from the garment. I know that sounds a bit odd, but I try not to get emotionally invested because it's really early and it might not work out just yet. So I try to keep an open mind, and I try not to be afraid to rip things out. I know we have a joke in our community called doing a Rachel, which is ripping something out. And the reason is because if it's not working, it's not magically going to be working in another 3 to 5 inches. All you're going to have lost is time. And I really try to remind myself of that. Like, it's not working now. Trust your gut. Let's rip and move on. Reworking things when needed, of course, because otherwise we won't wear it. And finally, this is like the overarching theme of this whole thing, trying to enjoy the process. And I know sometimes that can be really hard when we're trying to make these very intentional choices. And I sometimes get a bit mired down in it all. And I really try to remind myself, like, I'm doing this because I enjoy it. And if I'm not enjoying it, then I need to probably have a pretty good think about why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I hope that that is helpful. I would love to continue this conversation. If there are things that you do in your process of figuring out where you're going to go next with making your and your pattern storage and what you're choosing next for your projects, and as you're working through all of this stuff, I would love to hear about it in #podcast chat on Slack, or please leave a comment below here on YouTube and I'll share them on future shows, because it's a really, really important topic. Eve was wondering if Nora still wears the Jessie Maid tank that I made that she stole. I did end up making her own, and I had to fix it for her because the neck was a bit too tightly cast on. So I fixed the neck for her, but yes, she still wears it. She hasn't worn it while she's been here. I don't think she brought it with her, but I knit her the adult size, so it should still fit her. And I still have mine. I think it's a bit tight for me now, but I was going to try it on once we move back in and I get my clothes back, and see what I like, what I don't like. I think it's a bit tight for me, but I've got a couple of things that I know looks nice with it. So I'm hoping that I'll have a chance to wear it this summer. Yeah, the Eliane says she loves those pyramid patterns. I do too. I think they're so pretty, so pretty. And Rebecca says that the queue is an interesting tool. I use it to think through how I want to use my stash because I'm so stash focused. Yes, that's a really interesting comment actually, Rebecca, because you and I are very stash focused, but there are a lot of people out there who aren't, and who don't even think twice about their stash and work from it, but don't center it like we do. And I think that's such an interesting way of approaching things, because we all have different things that we are interested in and that we want to work from. So Rebecca says, I block aggressively and then I kind of give it a shake and bop it around a bit so it relaxes to where it'll be after wearing. That's very cool. Yeah, see, we all do things slightly different. You can't compare your stuff to other people's. You can't compare your gauge to other people. You can't compare your spinning to other people. We all do things that little bit differently. Yeah. Dion says, I add things to my queue that I own and want to make. So she's using it even a little bit differently from how I use it and how Christine uses it. So it's really interesting. Yeah, and of course Dion is really stash focused as well. Yeah, there's quite a few of us in our community that are very stash focused. So hearing from those who aren't maybe as stash focused, I'd be very interested. So yeah, these are also thoughts and ideas that have really changed over time for me. I think a few years ago I was much more focused on making sure that whatever patterns I chose to knit with my handspun, that they were the absolute right pattern. There was no mistakes. They were the perfect choice. I would rip and reknit until I got it right. I really felt more pressure than I do now. Now I think I feel a little bit more freed up to try things, to rip things out, to work back, to try different patterns that I maybe wouldn't have tried a few years ago. And it's really liberating. And I think sometimes just letting some of that go and some of that expectation go can really help bring that joy back into the process. Oh, thank you. Dagmar says, I wish you a smooth moving day. Bye for now. Bye, Dagmar. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. I love that, Lily. She says, I don't have a stash. I have a precious collection. I love that. I might actually use that. I love that. Eve says her mom is stash focused. She wants it gone. But what would you do if you didn't have it? Like, what would you do? If you don't have a stash to work from, then you have nothing to work from. I know why your mom is stash focused, because she wants you to clean up. Yeah, and I think it's really stressful for people who have that tendency and they want a really clean, minimalist space. It is stressful to have a big stash. I have to admit, I do find it difficult sometimes. I look around, I'm like, oh my God, there's stuff everywhere. I just want to get rid of it all. And I was actually chatting with my friend, about this the other day. We were talking about like looking around and seeing stuff and feeling like we just want it out of the way and want it gone. But I also don't want to put it away because like too much, because then when you have it behind closed doors, you kind of forget about it. And that's not great either. So somewhere in there is definitely a happy medium. Dion says, I have a treasure trunk of goodies. Dion totally talks like that too when she's in spin group and whatnot and she's sharing about her trunk. She never really calls it her stash. She always calls it her trunk of treasures. And I love that. I love that. All right, really quickly, because it is getting on and I am getting hungry because it's lunchtime. Let's pivot a little bit and do community participation. It's been a long show. So if you can bear with me for another 5 minutes, I will see you on the other side. Okay, I love this. Eve says, I liken it to her spice rack. Does she always use cumin? No, but she still has it. I use cumin every day. All right, there's some really fun stuff that you guys are doing right now. So Florence is still working on her 52 weeks of using what she has. This is the most recent addition. It's a another summer weight short-sleeved Whitmore. I love this pattern. I think it is so pretty. 8-year stash, 4-ply baby yarn. Beautiful. And she held it with a silk yarn. So I'm really curious to know how this feels and how it drapes. It must feel just magical. Beautiful, Florence. General makes and shares. This is from Sam. This was such a special story. I just thought this was so wonderful. This is bobbin lace. We don't talk about bobbin lace very often, but a dear friend of mine, my friend Sybil, is a beautiful bobbin lacer. She does just incredible stuff. Went to university for it. And I so appreciate bobbin lace. I don't do it. I appreciate it. 200 hours of weaving bobbin lace, 2 layers of joined with ribbon and elastic. This was a garter for her niece's wedding. Ah, Sam. I literally gasped out loud when I saw this. And the photo of her with the bride, with her niece, Sam, like they were both just glowing. They looked amazing. So go scroll back on the general channel in Slack to see that. Just beautiful. Really beautifully done. This should be like framed and hung up in their house. This is from Eliane. I got a beautiful fleece from my best friend, a lamb. It's a Norwegian wild sheep. The lamb was so beautiful and quite sassy. I love that. The fleece is beautiful. Still a challenge is these fleeces are often double coated with guard hairs and they have very long staples. She decided to make it into a testing project. First swatch is ready. I love that swatch, Eliane. I think that's just beautiful. This would be gorgeous woven. That long staple with that little bit of sheen, oh, just be beautiful. I can wear it close to my skin, but I don't think my adult children can. It's 11 wraps per inch. Angle is between 5 and 10 degrees and knit on 3mm needles. Gauge is about 17 stitches and 27 rows over 10 by 10 centimeters. The second swatch has been washed and is pinned up and ready to dry. And then she's just working her way through. I just love these experimentations. I think they're just awesome. This is some beautiful spinning that Stephanie just posted on the Slack channel, and I had to include it. Last Skeins off of her wheel before their big move to St. Louis at the end of at the end of June. It was a Melly Knits Romney Llama on her Matchless, and then Treenway Mulberry Silk on her Susie Pro. Beautiful. A bit of a bittersweet finale now to start packing up my studio and confronting how much yarn, fiber, and tools I've accumulated. That's okay. We won't judge, Stephanie. You can share with us. There will be no judgment here. This is from Rebecca. This is Gnatalia, all handspun leftovers. It's her latest gnome project, and I can't remember who it was, but they posted about gnome chess, creating an entire fleet of gnomes so that you have enough to play chess. And I was thinking of you, Rebecca. I was like, Rebecca needs to do that. Beautiful. And fiber prep, there's been a lot of fiber prep recently, but we do tend to see a lot of fiber prep as the weather improves in the Northern Hemisphere. This is from Maryland. This just looks so wonderful. She's got like a little charcuterie board there, and she's prepping some fin on Whidbey Island. Beautiful. Love that. And she's adding some mulberry silk in. This is from Christine, Tour de Fleece Prep. She bought this pencil roving a few years ago. It's a bit compacted, so she started carding it into batts. It's Cheviot, and she has 200 grams of each, the yellow and green. That is a beautiful yellow. This yellow is very similar to the one of a kind, the oak colorway from Bramble Ridge that I bought in the wool linen. As soon as I saw this from Christine, I thought of that yarn. Just beautiful. Beautiful for summer too. Love it. This is from Megan. Unofficially, she will have fun at Tour de Fleece. She always has to travel for work in the middle, and she really hates counting yardage, so she rarely does it anymore. Now she has 2 big spins that will work on a little now, but will try to hit hard during the tour. The first is her 40% cashmere, 60% CVM, which is the white one, just straight down below. All from local animals from fleece. And then she's been spinning on her shacked reeves. So she's going to spin it on her mini spinner because it hasn't been quite fast enough for the cashmere. And then she's also got a another John Arbin color wheel that she's working on as well. So that's beautiful. She threw that on her shacked reeves. This is from Dion, 8 ounces or 227 grams of roll eggs. Wow. 80-20 Shetland Tussa blend that she plans to do for Tour de Fleece if she doesn't get it sooner. Her container is an IKEA. It's 16.5 inches by 11.75 inches. So it's a fairly big container, and she still has more to make. But you know what, Dion? You'll spin through them like that. So fast. And then Spindling. Robin's been playing around with her Allen Berry spindles. Feels very lucky to have them here in Australia. Gorgeous. And then Lisa's been spinning a ton on her tacklies, and I think this is cotton that she's been working her way through. And that tackly straight down below here with the purple gem, oh my goodness, Lisa, that is beautiful. That is so lovely. So thank you, you guys. Thank you for sharing all that you do. Thank you for being here, for being a part of the community. Quite literally, I could not keep the lights on if you guys did not participate and support in the way that you do. So thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart. We recently hit 13,000 subscribers on YouTube, so I wanted to take a moment to thank you all for being here and for hitting the subscribe button. If you haven't yet hit that button, please do so. And be sure to like this video down below so that it's shared with more hand spinners and we get the word out about our little corner of the internets. It is wonderful to be here with you all. Thank you for joining. I will see you back here in 2 weeks' time for our Patreon anniversary, and I look forward to chatting with you all then. Next week we will be here same time, same place with Rebecca for the Wool Circle. So for those who are part of that, I look forward to seeing you and chatting with you all then. I just want to catch up with chat and make sure I didn't miss anything. You guys are chatting about the community participation. I know, right, Rebecca? I know. Oh, good to know. Eve, she thinks that Lisa's tacklies are John Gallen spindles. Yeah, John Gallen. Thanks, you guys. I wasn't sure that was who it was. Who made them, but they're beautiful, so that makes sense. All right, you guys, it's been a long show. Thank you for sticking with me to the end. Have a wonderful couple of weeks. I will see you here same time, same place in 2 weeks for our Patreon anniversary. Bye, everyone.